Hello and welcome to Reality TV News Update, where you'll find the most recent news, entertaining moments, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. CBS's upcoming Survivor 50 in the Hands of the Fans features a record-breaking cast that includes 24 iconic returning players from the show's 25-year run on the Primetime Network. Players returning for a second, third, fourth, or even fifth chance to win Sole Survivor date back to the first season of the show, when former castaways like Jenna Lewis-Docherty, star of Survivor Borneo, were in the cast. Meanwhile, others like Savannah Louie and Rizzo Velovich, who were still competing on Survivor 49 just a few weeks ago, only had 9 days to get ready for their return to the historic season after filming on their first installment finished last summer. However, for one castaway from season 50, the journey to making Survivor history as a part of the landmark episode took 15 years. Benjamin "Coach" Wade campaigned for 15 years to play on season 50. In Entertainment Weekly's all-access first look at the upcoming season, Benjamin Wade, better known to fans as Coach or the Dragon Slayer, stated, "The day after I lost South Pacific, I started playing this game. Every interview I've given in the event that I was going to come back here, I've sandbagged it by saying I can't win this game, while simultaneously considering the mistakes I made and how I could play the game differently. Playing has never stopped me." Wade will make his fourth appearance on Survivor in season 50, following his first appearance on Survivor Tocantins in 2009, where he placed fifth. After that, Wade joined the cast of Survivor Heroes vs. Villains in 2010, where despite helping to eliminate major threats like Boston Rob Mariano, he had his worst series performance yet, finishing 12th in the middle of the pack. However, following a 6-3-0 final tribal council vote in favor of Sophie Clark, the Dragon Slayer almost won the title of Sole Survivor the following year on the 23rd season of South Pacific. Wade revealed that he has been venturing out of his Zen den specifically to make social rounds to stay on CBS casting radar in hopes of landing a spot on a season like 50. Even if it means mingling with former castaways he would rather stay away from. This was done in order to avoid making the same mistakes again and ultimately win. "I dislike the majority of people. I don't like Boston Rob and any of these people where Survivor has become their identity," Wade told EW. "Therefore, I don't like the majority of people, but I talk to all of them because I know it will give me a foothold." Jenna Lewis-Docherty was patiently waiting even longer for her Survivor reappearance. Jenna Lewis-Docherty, who competed on the first season of the show, Survivor Borneo, in the summer of 2000, is the only castaway from season 50 who has not returned to the competition sooner than Coach. Jenna broke the previous record for the longest gap between a show's first season and a return with her appearance on Survivor 50, which now stands at an impressive 26 years, 49 seasons. Even though the original castaway did not participate in the lengthy con in the same manner that Coach did in order to earn a spot on the historic season, she did speak out about how much the game has changed since she last played. She stated to EW, referring to her most recent appearance on Survivor All-Stars, which took place in 2004, that "I was there for the very first iteration of bringing people back." She went on to explain that players' reactions to being eliminated from the game have changed drastically since her time on the first ever all-returning players season. Lewis-Docherty explained that while players from the new era might be able to look at Jeff Probst's snuffing of their torch, simply accept the opportunity to play Survivor, this was not always the case for the show's early contestants. It wasn't like, "Ah, dude, you got me," when you took someone down. It was a homicide, she stated to EW. "It was a murder. You had blood on your hands, and people hated you." She said, "From All-Stars, there are relationships that have never been healed." Survivor 50 in the Hands of the Fans makes its grand 3-hour debut on Wednesday, February 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on CBS. Watch how Benjamin "Coach" Wade and Jenna Lewis-Docherty adapt to the game's new era format. One former castaway had been quietly and relentlessly preparing for 15 years, long before the torches were lit for season 50, before Jeff Probst teased a historic return of legends, and before casting rumors flooded Reddit threads, not to gain fame, not just for redemption's sake, but for a second chance to demonstrate that their initial stay on the island did not define them. This is the story of a Survivor contestant who never stopped competing even when the cameras weren't there. A second chance that was not enough. When the future Season 50 returnee first stepped onto the beach more than a decade ago, they were young, hungry, and wildly underestimated. They weren't the loud strategist or the physical powerhouse in their first season. They were attentive, thoughtful, patient. However, chaos does not always require patience. A single alliance that was wrong, a surprise turn of events, a tribal meeting that went wrong. Their hope was dashed much earlier than anticipated. It was a forgettable vote out for viewers. They viewed it as a wound that would never fully heal. They later told friends, "I walked away knowing I hadn't shown who I really was, and that remained in my mind." This player made a different decision in contrast to other castaways who left, some of whom pursued influencer deals and others who completely distanced themselves from the franchise. They started getting prepared, training the body, and learning about the game. At first, the preparation was not overly dramatic. It wasn't obvious. They resumed their run, swimming, understanding how to manage hunger. They trained themselves to sleep on hard surfaces, took a shower with ice, learned how stress affected their bodies. But the real work was done in the mind. They watched every season of Survivor, not just their own, over and over. Structures of alliances from the past, chaos among medieval idols, modern meta strategies in which deception is expected and trust is the currency. They kept records, which players were shot at but survived, which social blunders doomed formidable rivals. How did jury administration change over time? They stated, "I wasn't watching for entertainment. I was learning." The show, Survivor, evolved. The game became rapider, more severe, less tolerant. They modified their mental blueprint repeatedly, refusing to be discouraged. They were not waiting for a call from the phone. They were getting ready for it. Life took place, but the dream remained. 15 years is a very long time. The dream didn't wait while life stopped. They developed a career, suffered personal setbacks, negotiated relationships with people who didn't always understand why Survivor was still so important. At times, it felt foolish to keep hoping. Quiet ones. Without their name, they aired season after season. Numerous all-star editions were produced. Opportunities to try again. Changemakers. Winners in conflict. Disappointment came back each time, but didn't completely put out the fire. I told myself at least I lived my life in a way that honored the goal if it never happened. This meant staying physically fit, socially adept, grounded emotionally. They improved their ability to read people, not just in the game, but in real life, resolving conflicts, leadership devoid of ego, being silent and listening, skills that would be much more important than brute strength ever would be on an island. The call that finally came. When the call came, it didn't feel real. A voice of a producer, a common question, a pause. Would you like to come back for something special? They did not yell. They did not cry. No, not yet. Instead, they asked one question. Is this the season I thought it would be? 50 seasons, the major season. A celebration of the history of Survivor, a return of unfinished characters, including legends, near legends, and players. After 15 years of quiet preparation, the time had come. The feeling only hit at that point. They stated, "I sat on the floor afterwards, just breathing, realizing that I hadn't wasted any of my choices." This time, preparation was focused on balance rather than obsessiveness. They improved their physical training without becoming exhausted. Puzzles, but not too many of them at once, primarily focused on adapting to the game rather than controlling it. In order to imitate island starvation, they worked with nutritionists, used mindfulness techniques to deal with exhaustion and paranoia, figured out when to speak and when silence was more effective. Most importantly, they let go of a perilous concept, the need for revenge. They realized, I don't need to prove I deserve to be there anymore. I already have. Their greatest advantage may be that shift in perspective. A different participant enters the beach. When the final episode of Season 50 airs, viewers will see a familiar face, but one that has fundamentally changed. It's not louder, not more flashy, stronger in ways that confessionals don't always show. This player recognizes that emotional, social, and psychological endurance is more important than dominance. Someone who knows that listening speaks more than talking, and that timing is more important than bravado. Other inmates might underestimate them once again. That would be a mistake, because some players worked hard to prepare for months. Some were set up for years. This one took half a lifetime to prepare. Why this story matters. Nostalgia is just one aspect of Season 50.
When their torch goes out, the majority of Survivor contestants think the game is over. Life returns once the sand is removed and the island is forgotten. However, for one former castaway, Survivor never really ended. Instead, it evolved into a 15-year journey of preparation that eventually brings us back to the beach for the most anticipated 50th season of the show. When they first appeared on Survivor more than a decade ago, this player was ambitious but did not have any experience. When they started the game, they had big ideas in a good social sense, but they underestimated how quickly alliances and trust could break down. Due to a single error and a sudden twist, they were sent home earlier than expected. For the viewers, it was just another elimination. The player had unfinished business with it. "I left knowing I had more to give," the castaway said in private later. That feeling never changed. Making a long-term plan from a loss. This castaway did what many former players do after their season is over. They analyzed each decision and error as they watched their season over again with critical eyes. What other choices might there have been? What types of relationships were overlooked? Where had logic prevailed over feelings? As time went on, these questions did not go away. Rather, they became motivation. The individual who had managed to flee began, purposefully and gradually, getting ready for a return that they had no idea would ever occur. They didn't run a campaign online or make it known to the public. On the other hand, preparation became completely private. Getting in shape was the first step. Their endurance training consisted of long runs, open water swimming, and bodyweight strength exercises modeled after island challenges. Hunger management became a routine. Cold showers took the place of warm ones. Sleeping uncomfortably became a quiet discipline. However, the actual transformation occurred mentally. Examining the development of the game. This player was more aware than most others that Survivor is not the same game it was 15 years ago. From the early alliance-driven seasons to the current idle, advantage, and quick-fire blindside-dominated gameplay, they examined every era of the show. Some people didn't see the patterns they saw. Big moves frequently backfired. Loud strategists rarely achieved success. Frequently, the most dangerous players were those who listened more than they spoke. "I stopped thinking about how to control the game," they said. "I started thinking about how to get by in it." They acquired jury psychology by investigating how timing, respect, and bitterness affected the final votes. They worked on improving their ability to read body language and tone, which would be useful later. The time flew by. Seasonal shifts occurred. The episodes aired without the returnee's name being mentioned. Nevertheless, they waited. Over those 15 years, beyond the island, life proceeded as it always does. Careers were established, relationships started and stopped. The loss was dealt with. The number of duties increased. At times, it felt like a childish wish that should have been abandoned to return to Survivor. But the dream never came to an end. Instead, it got better. The castaway witnessed real-world leadership in the form of conflict resolution and the establishment of trust without manipulative tactics. They developed patience, self-control, and the capacity to function in environments with high levels of stress, in which every word mattered. Ironically, they may have been more prepared for any challenge for the lessons in life they learned away from the island. "I'm thankful I didn't come back sooner," they acknowledged. "I wouldn't have been ready for that." The call that started it all. When producers finally attempted to contact them, a call came in unannounced. At first, the conversation was cautious and unclear. The question that halted everything came next. Would you be willing to return for something unique? 50 seasons. The sentences had meaning. This wasn't your typical season. It was a celebration of Survivor's history and a gathering of players whose stories helped define the game. After 15 years of preparation, optimism, and restraint, the answer came easily. Yes. The feeling didn't come out until after the call was over. Tears, laughter, The realization that every moment of doubt, rewatch, and early morning workout had led to this point brought about silence. A fresh approach to a new game. The castaway isn't returning this time to exact revenge or obtain what he deserves. They have returned with clarity. They are not required to demonstrate their belonging. They already know this. Preparation for Season 50 emphasized adaptability more than perfection. The player improved their ability to solve puzzles, sharpened their social instincts, and practiced emotional regulation under stress. Meditation took the place of obsession. Balance took the place of despair. They also accepted a hard truth. Winning is not guaranteed, no matter how prepared you are. But I'll play my best game, they replied, and afterwards, I won't think about it. A silent thread in a legendary season. When Season 50 premieres, this returning character may initially go unnoticed. They are not the strongest opponent or have the loudest voice. On the other hand, beneath the calm exterior is a person who has been preparing for more time than almost anyone else on the beach. This is a player who understands that winning Survivor requires hundreds of small decisions, not a single big move. They also know when to act, when to wait, and when to let other people make mistakes. Their light was cut off before their story seemed to have happened more than 15 years ago. Instead of chasing the past, they are now prepared to complete what they started when they return, and they've got everything covered.